Welcome to Training Bites, the podcast for learners diving into Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central. I'm Gabriella, and each week we bring you practical tips and real world insights to help you build your skills and grow your confidence. Today, we're talking about a topic every BC learner needs to get familiar with: what makes a project succeed or fail. From scoping to delivery, we'll unpack why some projects run like clockwork while others hit every bump in the road. Welcome Alfredo, a senior D365 consultant and founder of D365 Training. Hi Alfredo, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Gabriella. How are you?
Good, thank you. And you?
Very well indeed. Thank you very much.
A lovely day today?
Lovely day, warm day here in London.
Yeah, couldn't be sunnier.
Exactly.
So we'll explore what makes a project challenging and how to manage tricky client expectations, how to avoid the common mistakes that derail success. Let's get into it. The question one, what defines a challenging project? We often hear that experienced teams using solid methodologies can deliver projects quite smoothly. But in your experience, some projects still end up being far more challenging than others. What exactly defines that?
Absolutely. As you correctly said, we have experienced teams. We have the technology, and the technology is delivered by Microsoft, so one of the giants, right, in software development. In enterprise applications, we have a robust methodology, so everything in theory should go right. However, most projects end up with some kind of challenge, really, and there are many reasons why these projects become challenging. But really, it goes down to two or three elements, really. Misalignment in terms of expectations. Um, it the reason why clients expect a certain experience, certain services or certain products, right? Maybe when they embark a new implementation, that is something that we can debate. Is it really marketing and sales that set up the wrong expectations, or is it because the organization culture really doesn't really align with the concepts that apply to cloud enterprise software? There are many reasons, really, but really one of the main thing is really about expectations. The clients expect something. The client and a very common issue that we have in software delivery is when the client expects what we call a like-for-like implementation, like-for-like project. So what is a like-for-like? So I have this software. I want to change the software. I want a new software. I want a state-of-the-art Microsoft Dynamics Cloud Enterprise application, maybe more than one application to run my business and take it to the 21st century. Great, but I want an exact copy of what I do, right? And so it must be a new system, but it must behave exactly like my old system. Now, this is the number one reasons I would say that makes really creates a challenging environment. Also because the consultants maybe trying to be helpful, maybe they work very hard and trying to give the clients right what they want. They want to try to replicate their legacy processes and replicate features that they have in their current system into the new one, and then it's really unadvisable. It creates a nightmare because a project to deliver a business application, it's not really about the application. The application itself, the product, the software, right? The all the databases and all the different interfaces and integrations between different applications are really believe it or not, are the easy part. That's the easy part. A Business Central or a finance and operation project, it's really a digital transformation process to take the organization to the 21st century and embark on a journey that will allow them to run their operations smoothly. It's not about buying a new software and replacing an old software with a new one. It's like I want to get a new shirt and I'm going to get a very new, very fine shirt, but it must be the way I want it, right? A nice fabric, the nice style, right? It's an object, right? It doesn't change the way I work. A business application changes from the fundamentals, right, of how organizations operate. And so that kind of misalignment create a big, really challenge. I would say that's probably the number one. Then, of course, adoption. Once you have that, let's say, obstacle removed, right, the organizations and the team has embraced this new vision, right? We are going to implement a new software. We're going to buy and configure and go live with new software, maybe more than one application, right? An application, a suite of applications, CRM, ERP, right? Identity management, security, business intelligence. Then it's time to adopt this new mindset, adopt new processes, learn and embrace the new features and apply what you learn in a new environment. And if the team struggles to learn and to adopt the new features and technology, that is where really project scale becomes very challenging, because you just cannot go ahead and progress if the team hasn't really, taken fully on board all the new ways of working introduced by the new technology. So that's what happens, right? We have the best talents, we have the robust methodology, we have strong technology, but without adoption and without the right culture, projects become a nightmare.
Thank you. So we're talking really about when clients come in with a sort of fixed idea of how something should work. And then that's leading into question 2, which is how do you challenge those assumptions in a tactful way that's going to obviously develop things and move things forward? So say they're coming in with this fixed idea, it doesn't really fit how Business Central is actually designed. What's the sort of tactful way to say that's not a great idea and still maintain obviously the trust that the project's going to be all okay?
Oh, absolutely. That's not an easy task. So it really, there are 2 ways to address this issue or this problem. If the partner, the Microsoft partner who's responsible for the project, can really take on board and anticipate and expect these kind of risks, right, and challenges, and every Microsoft partner should really do that. You address that very early on in the project. According to Microsoft Success by Design, which is the framework that Microsoft recommends to deliver Dynamics software, Dynamics applications, there is the first step of this methodology is called the strategize phase. It's not a step, it's a phase. And in this phase, you work with the client and you make a strategy, right? You lay out the strategy about the adoption. And the strategy is really a way to navigate through uncertainty, right? And what is the uncertainty? The number one uncertainty. The organization culture is the number one uncertainty, because software is not uncertain. Software is, right, it's algorithm. There's nothing more certain than technology, right? Uncertainty comes from how we people behave when we go through a change. And so the strategy means, let's address how your team is going to get on board now that we're starting this transformational project. And so you work with the stakeholders, you work with project managers, you work with team leaders, managers. So guys, this is a transformational project. Let's embark on this journey. That is really, that really helps. Even if we do that, however, even if that is done very well, you know what happens? Some people in the organization simply reject that and they oppose it because they don't understand the benefit of change. Maybe they do understand the benefit of the change, but they don't see how it will work for them. Or maybe they do understand it, they see how it will work for them, but they are not willing to go through the pain, right, of changing the way you work. It's just, you know what, I know that will benefit my organization, maybe even myself, but really, it's not too bad, right? What I have now is not too much of a problem. So sometimes people in good faith, right? Very rarely they do it on purpose, but really in good faith, it's just because they believe that's the right thing to do, they would resist this change. And so you have the occasional members of the team says, actually, I don't think this is how it's going to work. I want it to work in that way. I want you to design it exactly like that. And so they start giving you very precise instructions. The page must be configured in this way. I want the button on the top right. I don't want that button on the bottom left, for example, right? They try to micromanage you. So how to address that? The best way, in my opinion, is not to, of course, enter into confrontational, not to be confrontational with the user. It never work. But also more training. Let me explain to you why that is not a good idea. The button from the left to the right, right? That also never really works very well, because consultants who are primarily technical, right, tend to believe that, and I make that mistake so often. I used to, no, less often, but I still do it sometimes. We tend to believe that an objection is really about, well, the client doesn't really understand why the button is on the top right, and let me tell them why it's not a good idea. It doesn't really work, because behind a request to micromanage your implementation, there is fear that would in this example, fear that I will not be able to do my job right, which means my colleagues will judge me. Oh, look, Alfredo cannot really use the new system, right? Old guy, right? He could not get, doesn't get it. And so this fear of losing my status in the organization says, I want to control this. I want all the buttons to be there. I want the system to do exactly what my old system does, so that I retain my status in the organization. That is really the number one. So a good consultant approach is say, you know what? Let me show you why the button on the bottom left is actually better. Instead of explain to them why that what they want will not work, because then it's that you have your idea, I have my idea, right? And eventually I'm the client, I'm the one who's going to approve the budget. You either do it my way or you're not going to get it paid. So I will show you why that will help you. I can show you that you can use this new system and it will make you save 2 hours a day. And
yes,
so,
if I can just interrupt a moment, that's really definitely a sort of advanced teaching method, because it's about both the technical aspects and also the psychological aspect of what you're trying to do, which is they have to relearn something which at first is very daunting. So it might actually feel that you're lowering their skills, or they might feel that they're de-skilling as such, taking away skills, and then they have to relearn and rebuild those skills in a slightly different way, which of course you need a lot of trust to do that, that the outcome is going to be the one you want, and just thinking about a lovely one with singing technique, for example, when pupils want to sing something a certain way because it's just a bit easier to get that note that way, but it's not the correct way to do it, and it could actually end up causing vocal damage, for example. And so you have to just you have to find the right way of helping them to just trust in the method and trust in what you're doing. And it's just a process, isn't it? It's just a sort of slow process of them really seeing that the outcome is going to be better. So yeah, really working with them, and not falling into that trap, the trap of people pleasing, which yes. I'm sure it must be difficult when you're in that sort of high pressure environment at that point, when you've got all your clients and consultants looking to you. There's a lot of pressure then on you, because you're in charge of rebuilding something, yes, taking something apart and putting it back together again. So when you get into that more high pressure delivery environment, what is your advice for managing clients and teams, not trying to please everyone, not people pleasing?
Not people pleasing, it's very difficult in our job, because we work with sometimes large teams, and the project sometimes involves many months, if not years, for a finance and operations project. There may be years, and high budgets. I mean, companies invest a lot of money in these efforts. So the tendency, particularly from junior consultants, or people who just started this profession, is to work with the client and trying to be helpful, right? So I will give you what you want. Absolutely, I can do what you want, right? Let me take note of everything you want. And you know what also that they do sometimes, a mistake they used to make, you go through a particular feature, training maybe, and the client comes back to you saying, you know what, I'm not really sure that will work for me. I would rather use something else. Is that possible? And you say, oh, absolutely. This is what you could do. And then they put together a very complex scenario with screenshots and examples, and then they ask, would that work for you? Please tell me if that works. And I'll wait for you to confirm if it works. And if you do that, I will put together and I will build it. Now, this is a natural instinct, right? You're trying to be helpful. But you know what they say? I love this old saying that says that the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Good intentions.
Exactly.
Lovely.
So if you have good intentions, right, the consultant says, I really want to help my client. I want to design something well. I want to be helpful, and I want them to be happy when they work with me. That is the fastest road to hell, because you are the expert and we get paid not for how we configure a business application. That's easy. That can be learned. That's, again, it's windows and screens and fields. Eventually, the clients can learn that. There is enough to learn online. You can use artificial intelligence to tell you what this field does, and eventually you will get it right. Not 100%, but you get it right. So you're not being helpful if you want to please your customer. You are very helpful as a consultant, as a leader in digital transformation, if you execute the plan and you follow the strategy so that the organization achieves the goal. The goal of a business application project can be many things, right? Reduce risk of breaking compliance because the old system doesn't comply with the auditing and tax authorities, for example. Streamline operations because the team is just spending too much time and money, right? Efficiency. Increase revenue. CRM, for example, managing sales. Reduce inventory, right? Something like communication. I mean, whatever. It can be more than one thing. You deliver on that promise, not on I will make the screen look like you want. I will make that sales document or purchase document show what you want. That's trying to be helpful and essentially it's the fastest road to hell. So I always make the example of a professional like a lawyer or a doctor or an architect, right? I come to you, you're my architect, I want a beautiful villa by the lake, right? This is my budget, I want to design like that. And you start working on it. And then I say, well, you know what? I want in my living room, I want a beautiful glass ceiling because I want to see the sky and I want to have a beautiful view. But if the structure of the villa makes the glass ceiling, exposed to, I don't know, it might break because of the climate, right? Or because you want, something else that affects the structure. I don't want my architect to say, of course I will give you the glass rooftop. And then maybe you say, oops, you know what? Now £100,000 crystal rooftop has just collapsed because the structure isn't supported. I want my architect to tell me, you can't have that. And tell me why. Tell me, you know what? I can give you something else instead that will be equally enjoyable, right? But it will ensure that your villa is sound and structured and will never collapse. That's
so
what
do you keep, no pun intended, reinforcing the technical technical
yeah, exactly,
aspects? It's technically based. This is what could go wrong if we don't do this, we don't do that, and that's technical reasons. So because nobody can argue with that, so that's nice. As you say, there are certain things that you can't really argue with.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I
So
suppose
one
that gives
side
you
is
something
technical.
to anchor it all on. Mm.
Yeah, so just to clarify, there's one point. One side is technical arguments, and well, technical doesn't is not going to work, which is good, and so client says, well, all right, well, there is a
Mm.
technical limitation, but that alone is not enough because people say, well, it's a software, right? Why can't this computer do that? Just do it. Let the computer do that, right?
Hmm.
On one side is the technical element, on the other side is
Right.
the why are we doing this, right? Really. So stay with focus on the strategy, on the goals, and tell you what, I understand why you want that feature. I understand why you want to crystal, ceiling because you want to see the beautiful night sky. However, if you do it your way, we risk that everything collapses. Again, you're not an architect. I am a civil engineer. I can tell you that is the case. So, but I still take your what you want on board, and I will give you, I don't know, something else. Maybe the second floor of the villa will be designed in a way that allows you to have a beautiful, terrace, and so you just have to walk upstairs to enjoy the skyline or the sky. Will you be happy to walk upstairs and enjoy the skyline? Because that will give you the same experience. It's not going to be a crystal rooftop, but maybe it's going to be even better. Now, I'm always simplifying here because I'm making an extreme example. But in business application, that is pretty much what will happen, right?
Thank you. It's very interesting. So, so talking about projects and some some reasons, give us some reasons why projects do stall or even fail outright. If you had to pinpoint a few reasons or even the top reason, what would it be that can cause that sort of collapse? Hopefully not.
Yes, absolutely. Well,
Talking
sometimes
buildings.
projects fail.
Mm.
Sometimes projects fail,
Mm.
and when they fail, sometimes they fail spectacularly. It was last year news that the supermarket chain, I believe it was Lidl, um, ended up essentially failing an SAP implementation. I might be wrong, but again, I will find it online and I'll put it in the comments. After having spent, I don't know, 100 million euros, it was in Germany, I believe, 200 million euros, and then they couldn't get the system to work. And then at some point, the CEO says, you know what, stop. I'm not going to waste any more money on this thing. And they still don't have, I don't know what happens actually, but they actually stopped it before they went live because they couldn't go live. They couldn't get this thing to work. So, as I said before, misalignment of expectations, right? Having a team which is not fully on board. Imagine in a project like that when you have 5,000 people and you have probably a management team of at least 200 or 300 people making decisions. If if this large team doesn't work with a common
Mm.
goal, and they don't have leadership, right, and a management who can lead them towards the common goal, you will never finish an implementation. There's no chance to do that. So that is really, it's the team must be aligned. The second, it goes back to what we said before. Trying when you have a consultant team who wants to please their team. Of course, I will do what I want. Of course, I will change the system. This is how the system works. You don't like it? I'll change it for you. Let me change the algorithm. Let me change this page. Let me develop an extension. Let me modify the system for you. Say, I'm very helpful. I do exactly what you want. And then you end up with something that doesn't work because our business applications are extremely complex. And when you want to extend or modify a business application, you really need to do it in a way that ensures that everything works together. And it's not just about that specific piece of functionality. So it's really about that. It's really about trying to sort of please your client really, and to have, of course, misalignment. I would say the third one is probably about onboarding and adoption. So let us assume that the team is on board, right? And they know they're going to, and they're very excited about this project, and they know they're going to change. They embrace the change. The team is very focused, and we put together a beautiful solution. But then this new complex family of applications that work together must be learned. right? And if the client doesn't learn the application, there's no way that you're going to succeed. You're not going live because they users will trying to do and execute their tasks or trying to do their job, and nothing works because they simply don't know how to do their job. So if adoption and training is not done correctly, the system might be working perfectly well, and so most organizations go live too early. The system is perfect. Nobody's complaining. There are no errors, right? Next week, we switch the old system off and we turn the new one on. You start working, it's Monday morning, this new beautiful system, and you don't know what to do. You don't know how to use it. Orders are piling up, right? Emails are, starting to appear in your inbox. I cannot release the order. I cannot post this payment. I cannot register a bank transaction. You know what you do? You take your Excel, you take your notepad, you start writing things because you need to do your work. Day one goes by, only 50% of the orders are in your system. The remaining 50 are on your notebook. It's day two, you need to catch up with work, plus you're still slow. 1 week and your system that should theoretically work like a Swiss clock, right? He's got only 20% of the orders, right? 50% of inventory, and the bank transactions show numbers that don't make any sense because 50% of the transactions are not in the system. The remaining 50 are wrong because users just clicked wrong. They didn't know how to use it. Complete failure of a system which has been configured perfectly. And so what you need to do is, start over. Because the system, the organization cannot function. And so, culture, number one, a partner team who wants to please the client and trying to be very helpful while failing to stay on track, and training gaps. Those are the three main reasons why projects fail, really.
That's great, thank you. I think that what's really coming across there is talking about underestimating the technical complexity, really, amongst all of that, really, the technical knowledge that seems to be coming across again and again in what you're saying, amongst other things. That's certainly one of the sort of top 5 reasons.
Yes.
So technical complexity, it's really essential to have that, make sure that training is delivered in the right way, and everything, it cannot be underestimated, the importance of
absolutely.
that.
You cannot underestimate the importance of training. That's another problem that we as leaders and experts often have, because we are so used to the tools that we use at work, the applications, business processes, that we tend to forget that every business is unique, right? And just because you know everything about finance and accounting of your software, and you know all about finance and accounting because you got an accounting background, right? You're an accountant by trade, like most consultants are, right? And then you work with a CFO or a financial controller of an organization, and you tend to go through the training quickly. Well, you know what we're talking about, right? This is the ledger, this is the accounts payable, this is the cash statement, cash flow, and this is how you close the year, and this is how you run your financial reports, and this is how the gross margins are here, net margins are there, and on the other hand, you've got someone who say, well, of course it's my job, I know exactly what to do, but really this new application, I'm not that sure. But no, don't worry, as soon as we go live, I will start using it and we'll start learning. So the user doesn't really feel confident with the new system, but you as a consultant have unwillingly, inadvertently induced the client, right, to essentially to hide from you the fact that they don't really know the system yet. And so that happens all the time. In operations, it happens all the time. Yeah, of course, it's manufacturing. These are my root cards. These are my work orders. Oh yeah, this is crap, this is material consumption, finite capacity, no problem, an expert on that. All right, then you go online and this is the button, this is the screen. Fine, maybe 30 minutes of training, and then 6 months later, I got no idea what I'm doing. And so training and sharing knowledge is essential for a successful project. Sharing knowledge, not just information, right? Sharing knowledge doesn't mean now you know the words, the terminology. Sharing knowledge means now you know how to use it, to use the system, and it's tremendously important. And we often overlook that because, again, we as a consultants, we know all about it, and we tend to think that now it's easy. The clients sometimes, they don't feel like asking because they don't want to look or sound.
No, of course, people won't do that. And that's why as a teacher, as a trainer, not a consultant, when you're thinking about being a trainer, you mustn't make assumptions. And that's really where you can then create a kind of, you're building upon things that you've assumed are there and they're not. So you must never make assumptions when you're training, when you're teaching. Make sure that the complexity is fully understood, because of course, because you've covered these things over the years for so many years, it's very easy to go in there with
absolutely those. The bias, right? We all have a bias.
Yeah,
it's part of our job. Again, a good teacher. This is the difference between a good teacher, trainer, and a good and an expert, right? I don't know if you've ever met them. I met many of them. I worked and I still work with brilliant consultants, ex-technical architects and lead solution architects who know all about the application. That the number one, they could write a book about the application because of the things they know. But ask them to show you, to teach you how to use it, and they will drive you mad. Right? And after 10 minutes, sorry man, stop it. Right? I don't understand the thing we do. What are you saying? Oh look, this is easy. You click here, you click here. What are you
just read my book, they say.
Yeah, exactly. Just read. I'll give you training. That again, you can be an expert and be a terrible trainer. And this is why it's very important to get into a project and to have the humility to understand that your clients, your users, though they are experts in their field, might require an extra, attention when you work with them, because people learn in different ways. And sometimes people will not tell you, sorry, can you say that again? I didn't get it. Because they don't want to appear, stupid, right? Or maybe you did doing a team training, right? Everybody in the room say, oh, yes, I got it. Oh, yes, I understood. All clear. Raise your hand if you want to be the only one who says, actually, I am the one in this room who didn't get it. Can you explain that again, right? That doesn't happen, right? But then people don't say it to you. You don't know, and then this is what happens. So a good trainer should get it. A good trainer, like a good teacher, should be able to say, you know what? Let me start with the basics, right? Let's do an exercise, right? 4 out of 5 users in this room went through an exercise and they all managed to, register this transaction. One of you didn't manage. Let me show you. Let me walk over your desk. Why is it you're struggling? Let me take it offline and we'll talk it privately, right?
Yeah.
That's probably for an entire new podcast, probably, right?
Exactly.
Again, massively important.
Every project is unique, and that's it actually for this episode of Training Bites. I'm afraid, Alfredo, I know you could go on for quite some time, but time to stop. Huge thanks, Alfredo, for sharing your insights, and thanks to you all for tuning in. If you're learning Microsoft Dynamics Business Central, we hope today's episode gave you lots of lovely insights. Make sure to share this with anyone who's starting their D365 journey. And also, if you've got questions or a topic you want us to cover next time, just reach out. We'd love to hear from you. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you. Have a good
Thanks,
evening.
Alfredo.
Bye.
Bye.